Hello and welcome to a new episode of New Earth Awakening. Today, we welcome to the show the amazing Shannon Curtis, the founder of Angel Goddess Healing, a sanctuary dedicated to those looking for healing, transformation, and personal growth. Shannon is the author of No More Monsters Under the Bed, Shining Your Light on the Dark, a transformative book for all ages, written both for children and the child within us. It is a story to remind us that even in the darkest moments, the light that shines within always knows the way home. Whether you seek clarity, resilience, or renewal, Shannon is here to support you. Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that beautiful introduction. It just made me smile having that reflected back on where I'm at in my life and saying, that's me who she's talking about. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thanks for the work that you are doing. So let's start right there. How did your journey lead you to the work that you're doing today?
Wow. So that's such a great question because my journey just includes so much stuff. I tell people I went through divorce, miscarriages, depression, anxiety, sat with plant medicine, sexual trauma. So I really have all of it. But where I really got led to it is I had a beautiful moment that led me to Mexico. And I sat in this super powerful plant medicine called Ibogaine. And that's where all my truths were really, really revealed, and some memories that were very painful of mine that came to light. And so for me, and we'll delve into it, but my 4-year-old self had a memory that was locked inside, and I didn't know, but I always felt I had sexual trauma, but I couldn't remember. And so when I found myself in Mexico sitting in this beautiful plant medicine, it was revealed to me what happened, and I actually was sexually molested. So within that, that opened up this journey of unconditional love and true forgiveness for not only myself, but for my perpetrator, and to see him as myself. And so once I did that about 1.5 years ago, everything else is just unfolded. And I wrote a book, and now I did Angel Goddess Healing. And so it just really started my life of, after divorce and getting to start over, who do I want to be? And now I can say, listening to it back, everything you said is exactly who I want to be.
And that's exactly what you're actually doing. So let us begin somewhere on your journey. Like, the dark night of the soul usually is this moment of, there is something that is no longer serving me. I want to let go of it and let the light shine. So how did that happen for you?
Yeah, I would say for me, there was 2 pivotal points. One was about 8 years ago when I found myself in treatment for a 7-year-long addiction with pain medicine. And that was that time, that dark night, I would say that I was done. I was done hiding the pain, the trauma, all the shame, all the guilt, everything that came with that. And so when I went to this beautiful center in Arizona, it was a trauma center, and we really worked on trauma. So for 6 weeks, I was able to just focus on myself and all these traumas. And so that was a big one of re-engaging in life sober, not using anything to execute my personality, to change my personality. And that was something that for the first time I had to live sober. I had to live with Shannon and her thoughts and how the person she was, and how am I sexy? How am I funny without alcohol, or with the pain medicine? How do I handle pain? And so that really opened me up to this journey of wanting to know. And so when I was there, I tried to look into the trauma when I was 4, because I was 4 by myself at home with the housekeeper. My parents worked, and I was taken by an older gentleman that picked me up, that asked if he could take me for the day. And he was, I think, probably late 20s, early 30s. And he was a friend of my dad's, kind of acquaintance. And so my housekeeper called my mom, and she didn't answer. And so she went ahead and let me go with this person. And so I just had very little memories from it. And so when I was at this trauma center doing somatic experiencing, trying to get back into that, it just would not unlock. It would not unlock. And I remember the therapist saying, the body remembers, but the mind right now doesn't. And so I had that kind of in the back of my mind. But after I found myself going through divorce, and like I said, just wanting to start over, it's that dark night, like you said, that thing of, I want to know. I want to know so then I can heal it. And so that other journey was in Mexico when I figured it out, and I'll go into that journey, and it was beautiful, and I had God and Buddha and a shaman, and I had all kinds of visions, absolutely beautiful. I was in heaven all night with the angels, and God told me I was an angel messenger of love and light, and that's my purpose. But the big, big moment, I would say, is when I was in my journey at the very beginning. And people that don't know plant medicine, it's very dreamlike state, or Ibogaine is, where you put a mask on and you're literally in another universe, a dream, but you can open your mask and you're right there and you're right next to. So ayahuasca is a little different. This is very much only when when your eyes are closed that you can kind of experience that. And so very beginning, God came to me and asked me, "Are you ready to know?" And I said, yes. And it was just that energetic feeling dialogue. And I saw it clear as day. And it took me right back to that moment of my 4-year-old self. And I was looking in the car. So I was viewing the car, and my little 4-year-old self was on the left side, was on the passenger, and the male was on the right side. And it showed me in a very gentle way, but yes, that I was molested. And in that moment, I had that true remembrance. My body remembered. My soul remembered, my mind, it all connected. But with that came a lot of pain and a lot of anger and a lot of sadness. And I had to process it. And it felt like a split second that I processed all of this, but I just was relieved too. I was relieved because I was like, I knew. Like, okay, I'm not crazy. I knew all these things leading up to this, all these addictions, all these traumas, all these intimacy issues, miscarriages, all these things I knew. And so I'm there, and my perpetrator is standing in front of me, and I look down and there's this ball. The only way I can describe it, it's like a ball of yarn, a wire, and it was red and it was all jumbled up and it was in my like pelvic area. And I look at God and I'm like, this is bad, because I knew it was anger. And he's like, yeah. And I said, I got to give it back to this person. And so I literally just gave back all that anger, all that shame, all that yuckiness to this person. But then he's standing there right in front of me. And I'm literally seeing him as the eyes of God is. And I was like, he's the same as me. He is the same light as me. Ultimately, when you strip away all this human stuff, earthly stuff, he is of the same essence of me. And I was like, I have to forgive him. And so in that moment, I understood and I forgave him. And it was that moment of knowing it was done for me, not to me. And if I wanted to experience that beauty of unconditional love and forgiveness, someone had to do something to me. And so I realized in that moment, he was just giving me that gift of doing something to me so I could have the exchange of the forgiveness and then to share it with other people. But it was that most beautiful experience that literally changed my life, because I went from knowing why it happened to understanding why it happened. And so once I moved into the understanding that it was done for me, you don't have the anger, you have gratitude. You move into it because you're like, thank you, thank you. And now in my life, I walk clients through sexual trauma, and that's what my book was born from, walking a little child through trauma. My 15-year-old daughter is going through the same thing now. And as a mom, this is the hardest thing. Yeah. But it's the understanding of this is what happened to me, so I can walk her through it. So she doesn't have to be in her 40s like me, and she doesn't have to struggle with addiction and all this depression and not loving her body and all the shame that I was carrying for all those years. But that's why. And so I learned to turn my pain into purpose. And I understand it now because I was strong enough to move through it. And that's why I'm such a big believer in plant medicine, because I tried. Maybe I would have gotten to it later, but I truly know I would not have had it released and unfolded in that beautiful way without the help of plant medicine. And so now that's what I do, is I help people that are going and sitting with plant medicine, because I'm a big believer when your intentions are right and you're ready, the universe will reveal your true nature. They will reveal your mission. And without a doubt, that was my mission, was, yes, this is mine, is to share this, to tell people these bad things can happen to you and you can still move through them and you can still forgive that person. But ultimately, it's about forgiving yourself. That's what I found. It was about letting go of the shame that I was carrying in my body. And so now I just love to pay it forward. And like today, having me on here and we can just discuss it, but it's just something that I feel this planet is ready for more love and more unconditional love, and we're ready to start forgiving. But sometimes it's hard and you don't know where to start. And so I just offer that to have anyone who's listening to have my story be maybe a glimpse of hope that it is possible.
Shannon, it's so important. Thank you for sharing that with the audience. There is nothing that cannot be forgiven. And the most important one is to forgive yourself first. So thank you. Can we go a little bit deeper into that? And how do you help other people with forgiveness? Are there any tools that you can share with the audience right here, right now, so that they can move into it and land in gratefulness?
I think gratitude is a huge one. So I'm a big, big believer, like your perspective of shifting it. I work with clients, say that someone maybe has a really, really abusive parent that abused them all life and was really mean to them. How do you find gratitude in that, right? How do you say, well, what's the point of that? Sometimes the gratitude is, thank you for showing me who I choose not to be. That's all it is. Thank you for reflecting to me the negativity that I choose not to be around. It's that just shift of they're giving you that opportunity to either become like them or change. And so it's presented to us. And so that's how my mom, unfortunately, had sexual trauma that probably wasn't dealt with as much. It got transferred to me. I didn't deal with it. It got transferred to my daughter. This is what happens. People need to realize this is that generational trauma. Until you're ready to be brave enough and strong enough to step in it and break that cycle, I know that's why it got passed down to my daughter because I didn't. And so now I can help her. And one of that way is gratitude of finding the purpose in your pain. And I think if people can find that, how can I transmute this into something that helps another person? Because that's the connection we're missing is you're not alone. I am not the only one going through this. I guarantee you, if someone's listening and something happened to them, there's someone else out there that it happened to. But if we don't talk about it, how do you know? And so gratitude is starting to see, oh, maybe it happened to me and I can move through it so I can help somebody else. And then I ultimately find my power and I'm healing my inner child work through myself, but I'm also doing it by helping my daughter because every time I see her, I'm like, when I was 15, I had no clue and I was going down a wrong path. She knows, at least, as painful as this is, she knows. And so it's finding that gratitude and why this happened to my daughter. But it also, I know it's going to help our story that much more powerful one day when I can say, yeah, I've been on both sides. I've been the victim and I've been the person to have to help. So that's where I find the gratitude in what happened to my daughter. I could just melt down and say this is the worst thing and I give up and I hate the planet and humans are awful. Some of those statements are true. We do bad things. We do. But I have to have belief. And that's where, for me, I say an outside source, but it's ultimately within me, God, something higher than me. There's a reason behind it. There is a reason why everything happens to us. And I just don't believe it's to punish us because we're bad. It's lessons and it's teaching. And so if someone's struggling with that, it's what is this trying to teach me? Because it will keep playing out in our life over and over and over till we're finally like, I get it. I get the lesson. It's about boundaries. It's about saying no. It's about all these things. I didn't know that. And so that trauma that happened at 4, it played out through all my life in different ways. I just didn't see it. But ultimately, it was about not being true to me and finding that inner voice and speaking it. And so that's what I would tell people is just start with being curious of why are these things happening to me and am I willing to look at them a little deeper.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So let's talk a little bit about this common topic amongst star seeds, light workers, however you want to call us, the collective of awakened ones. The common theme being that we experience a lot of very, very adverse or bad things, that happened for us to help us move into forgiveness. One of the topics that I channeled was that forgiveness is a ladder leading towards enlightenment. So the more you're able to forgive, the higher you reach, right? So please, what is your take on that?
I love that you said that with the ladders because I think ultimately it leads you back to the oneness. I sit in meditation all the day, every day. I work with spirit a lot, a medium and, with clients and stuff. But the ultimate thing that I channel a lot of times too that comes is the knowing that we're one. And so when I was staring at my perpetrator, it was easy because I saw him as me and not in physical form. So it's like taking ourselves out of humans, and that's that enlightenment. It's like expansion. I always look at like an accordion. And so at the center of the accordion is our body. Is our body. But when you kind of go out and expand into the universe in these different realms or dimensions, you're going to see ultimately it's all the same. We're all just reflecting things to each other. And so sometimes when the bad things get reflected, those are the things that I need to heal, because those are the things when they bother me, or I get upset by somebody, or I get shamed from something they say. What are they reflecting to me? So when I realize, I look at it as like a disco ball, and you have all those little things that are reflecting all the light and make it all pretty. That's how I look at humans. We're all one big disco ball. We all have our own viewpoints. And so it's being curious. What's your viewpoint? How do you see life? But it's filtered through you. So it's not that I'm right or wrong or you're right or wrong. It's just being curious how we can come back together. And so that forgiveness is ultimately saying, you're no different, better or worse than me. You're just reflecting something back. And it's my job to look at what's mine and what isn't. I'll give to you what is mine. I'm going to look at, and I'm going to go up the ladder and learn and process. So that's probably the best way of like, the visual. I love that with the ladder, and it's getting to that ultimate truth of we're all the same. We're all the same.
Yes, you're me from another point of view. Thank you, Shannon. So let's speak a little bit about the topic that we have been basically touching on a lot, which is the shadow work, which is stop repeating the patterns, pause, and come from this place of reaction to this place of action. So what is your take on that, and what are actionable tools that we can utilize to move into this empowerment state?
I think shadow work's so important, or you call it ego work. You know, everyone has these things. I say like self-check. I have my partner. He helps me with I call them blind spots. And so it's these things that maybe I don't see, and maybe they're behind me and I don't know, but they're so important. They're so important to be willing to look at, because it makes me a better coach. It makes me a better medium. It makes me a better partner, a better mom, is when I'm aligned. And so I have to go through and look at my stuff, and am I being a clear channel? Because if I'm not, then I'm not going to be able to sit for my clients. I'm not going to be able to hold space for them, because I'm bringing in my wounds and my stuff. And so I found that that's what really helps me when I sit with clients or help them, is it's not about telling them what I think they need to hear. I tap into spirit, and I'm like, Spirit, you come through me and you use me to help them. And so then I don't get depleted, because it isn't coming from me. I'm not giving away my love and light, using them to help shine it through me. And so that really is a big, big one that helps on just trying to do the shadow work of shadow's not bad. We think dark is bad. So we think shadow is, oh, these bad things. Some of my shadow is anger. And what I'm learning in this last just week or two, that's been my shadow work, is anger is good. Anger has a purpose, but I didn't understand it. So when I look at anger as boundaries and it's self-protection, okay, but if I wasn't willing to look at that, and this was just literally in the last 2 nights of meditation, of sitting in anger or being disappointed with people, and my kind of fallback was love and light. I'm good, everything's good. But what I was missing was, what was I doing with that human emotion of anger? It was pushing it down, because I didn't want to make anyone else uncomfortable. So I just took it because I knew I could, and I could get back to the love. But what I was doing was I was robbing myself of my voice and my most authentic truth. And so I had some big things in my life I had to face, and I had to speak with some people that was really uncomfortable for me. And every time I do it, I'm like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Oh, that wasn't that bad. And so I'm just getting used to it. But that's where that work is so important, to always keep wanting to grow. Always. Nothing is ever going to be just when you think you're done, something else comes up. And then that's that beauty of surrendering. This is why we're here. This is why we're here, people. This is why what I believe is to experience. That is the only difference of being alive and not being alive, is we get to experience that beautiful array, that rainbow of human emotions. And so what I'm doing is I'm learning how to embrace all the colors, not just the good ones, but the anger or the guilt or the shame, and to understand them. And so that's where that work becomes very powerful, because you learn a lot more about yourself when you're willing to look at that dark and find that the only thing in the dark is light. That's it. The only thing I found was me sitting in the dark just waiting to be found.
That's beautiful. I love that, The importance of shadow work is really high. I believe that you can't be a light worker if you're not also a shadow worker.
It's so true. It's a beautiful, like I always say, you have to have the light with the dark. And if we were all, like I think of the sun, if we were all just in the light of the sun, we wouldn't appreciate it. First of all, we wouldn't understand it because that's all we know. So you have to have contrast. And so that's why I tell people you have to have the good and the bad, because if you didn't, then you're not going to understand it. But also it's the surrender of, that's what we're at. We're in a duality place. Yes, you want to get to the non-duality, but we live in a yin and a yang environment. And so it's learn to meet in the middle, but don't fight don't fight the dark or the light. Just try to, like you said, just kind of become it. And it's all a part of me. It's all a part of me.
That's also one of my favorite topics that you just said, and the duality of how can you come into unconditional love if you have never experienced conditional love in your life and you don't know what it is about, right?
Yeah, that's so true. And then it's the discernment of what does conditional love feel like to you? Because that's where people are like, how do I move into unconditional love? Well, first you have to understand what conditional love is. And 99.9% of the time, all of us are living in conditional love. You do this for me, and as much as I try, I still get that. I still have expectations. I still have things. And so that's that, again, quote unquote, shadow work of bringing it back at the end of the day. And meditation's a big one for me. That's my chance to clear my thoughts and be like, get out of the head and into the heart. And that's where I think the ego work, the shadow work is moving from our brain, because our brain is going to tell us everyone's out to get us. Everyone's talking about us. We like to make up the stories in our head. But when you go to the heart, that's where I ask people, what does that feel like? What does that feel like? That's unconditional love, when it's nothing but love. Ultimately, at the end, that's that oneness. But when you get back in your head, your brain won't understand that, because the ego is here to keep us alive. The ego is what separates us from me to you. And that's important, but it's like we try to fight it. And I don't think it's like ego death or anything. It's just understanding. The ego is like driving a car, and most of the time the ego wants to be in the driver's wheel. They want to be behind it and steering it. I literally try to pick up my ego, put it in the passenger side, say, yeah, you have a purpose in the car. You have a big purpose, and you can do this and that and the radio and all that. But ultimately, my higher self is what's going to be driving this vehicle. So when I do that, everything else is so much easier. But it's just remembering who's driving my car.
Exactly. Thank you very much. So let's move to the experience that you already talked about a little bit in Mexico. What was this experience about for you? How did it come to you, first of all? How was the experience itself and the integration afterwards? All of it, please.
Yes. So I was very blessed. My partner, he went and sat in the medicine probably about 6 months before me. And a little backstory on him, he's a vet and worked in the government for 20 years. And so he had a lot of PTSD, depression. And so he was at that edge where he needed help. He had done talk therapy. And so he found this beautiful place. It's called Ambio Life Sciences in Mexico. And he found it on a podcast, Sean Ryan, and a lot of vets went there and were having really big results. And so he started looking into that. So he went and he asked me, do you want to? And I was like, I'm good, because really I was probably 90 to 95% good, where I was in a really good place in my life, but there was just that little bit of that memory that I really wanted to know. And so I was like, no, I'll just support you. And so he went and had the most amazing experience. I saw the difference of, I'll never forget talking him on the phone after, and my dogs were running around in the background barking. And pre-Ibogaine, it would have set him off, like, call me back, like, it's too much. And I remember saying something, he was just laughing, like, they're just dogs running around. And it was that shift. And I was like, wow, I could see it, I could hear it, I could feel it. And so that was really exciting. And so when he was down there, I said, I'm going to do it. And most people who know plant medicine, it starts talking to you, and they call it like the Ibogaine vortex. It's like you just know. Because when you're like, no, 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 and you start thinking, yes, that's the medicine starting to say you're ready. And so when he was there, I said, I'm going to go. And so I signed up, and that was October. So March, I went, and there was 4 other women, and we met in San Diego. And then they drive you across the border, and there's this beautiful home. You wouldn't even know you're in Mexico. And it felt so safe and secure, and a gorgeous house and chefs and pool. And it was a really nice treatment, but then it was also the plant side of it. But Ibogaine can do your heart a little bit, slow your heart down. So you have to have medical staff with you. And so the Ambio was really good at balancing. Like you go to ayahuasca and the Amazon, you're not going to have that. And so they didn't want to take that away. So the room that we were in, we laid on mats and we had an altar and flowers and they sage and do all those things and the music. But then you also were hooked up to a heart monitor. So they're very good at that balance of you felt secure in your body, that you're safe, which I think is very important for anyone who's listening that wants to sit in plant medicine. Safety's number one. To really, really vet your facilitators. And if you have any kind of weird feeling, just trust that. Just trust that. And so they were good about that. And we did a sweat lodge the first night, which really got me opened up into being uncomfortable, sitting in 4 hours and, sweat lodge. I was a little bit nervous at first about that, but it taught me. It taught me how to sit in the uncomfortableness of my body. And that was big for me because when you go through sexual trauma, a lot of times you're not comfortable with your body, because especially when you hold on to the trauma, it's in there. And so it was really hard for me to sit in that. And so the next night we started the ceremony at night. So you're in the medicine all night long, and it's at least about 12 hours. And so again, that's the difference with maybe ayahuasca, a couple hours or 6 to 8. This is all night thing. And mine lasted all the way to the next day. And so we had the fire ceremony and I was ready. And you start by looking at a mirror and you kind of start feeling the medicine, and everyone's experience is different. And I will preface it on that mine was very unique and I'm very grateful for it, but it's very, very different. And so I just don't want people to think, oh yeah, everything's like this. But I felt like I did a lot of work before and I must have just been ready. But mine, outside of when I looked at my perpetrator and dealt with that, everything else was the most beautiful experience of, I just remember flying and being like, I can go wherever I want. And I was going through all these lifetimes and dimensions, and I didn't even understand what that meant at the time. I did not even know what that meant. And one of the pivotal points was I took a booster, so you can take an extra dose in the morning if you want. No one else did. I think one person, but I was doing amazing. I was sitting up writing a book. And to remind you, I don't think I said it, but when you're in this medicine, you can't really move. It's called ataxic and you're shaking and you have to have help to walk to the bathroom. You can't move at all. Like you are just like, it's almost like a deer, a Bambi first trying to walk. Your legs are shaky. The fact that I was able to write in my medicine is absolutely crazy. And so I have literally an Ibogaine book of all these things that have come true, which is kind of crazy in itself. But I had a big moment that I laid back and it felt like I died. And all I can say is I just went into the ground, but then I shot up to the sky and I was surrounded by the most beautiful stars, and it was all dark and purples. And I went up and I was kind of hanging with it was like the warrior goddesses, all the women. And I like represented the angel goddess and the angel women. And it was all these women, warrior, strong women saying it's time for us women to step up and the men to step down and heal. And that's what the medicine told me was it is time for us women to rise up and we're ready and the men need to heal. And it's so interesting even saying that out loud after a year and a half, 2 years, that's what's been happening around here. And in my relationship and the clients I work with, a lot of men are doing these deep, deep healings, and all these women are finding their voice and ready to rise up and be that strong feminine power that I feel like is going to be the shift in what we're all looking for. It's too much masculine right now. It's too much, and there's a place for masculine, but that's what really came to me. And then I asked the medicine, why Ibogaine? And it showed me it was the perfect balance of masculine, feminine, where it took me to those dark edges, but it wasn't suffering or painful. And then it was just beautiful. And so it was that balance of the masculine, feminine of I dealt with the stuff I needed to deal with, but then the other was about just my soul's mission in life. And I walked away just knowing who I am. And so the next day, it's called gray day, and you're still kind of in the medicine, and a lot of people don't feel good and laying in bed. I was on cloud nine. I wanted to shout to the universe. I would hear the pool, and I'm like, it's just like angels whispering, and I could feel the frequency, and I could hear everything and the colors. And it was like I was just seeing from a different lens, and it almost felt like like the purity of it. My eyes got cleansed of what I was seeing once I removed the trauma and had the unconditional love for myself. I just stared in the mirror and I was like, you're so beautiful. And I was like, how would you ever want to hurt yourself? Why would you ever take another pill? Those kind of, that was my mentality. And I've been able to integrate it, and we'll talk about that. But that moment for those 24, 36 hours really changed my life because I got to experience life from a different lens. And it was from that unconditional, that higher frequency. And that's what I've learned as it's just all frequency. The more I'm up in love and up there, the better it feels. And so that really helped give me the discernment of that's where I want to be most of the time. And so Mexico really did that. And then they also offer 5-MeO, which is like Bufo. It's a DMT. And so they offer that on the very last day. But my experience was so beautiful. I didn't do it where most people have a little rougher time because Ibogaine opens you up and it shows you your belief system, basically. And so I think mine was because ultimately I was pretty good and believing in everything, but it shows you that. So if you think there's a fiery hell, you might experience thinking that you're going to go there. That's what it just shows you. But I tell people because then it gives you a chance to change those beliefs. If it doesn't feel good, change them. And so that really with the 5-MeO, the DMT, I didn't do it because that's like the God molecule, the oneness. I had already had that. So I've sat in it since then. But my trip was just, I couldn't have asked for anything better. And it was life-changing. But it was something that I was ready for. And people that are doing plant medicine are thinking about it, you'll know. And when you really, really are ready, the universe will open up.
Thank you, Shannon. So let's talk a little bit about the integration part, because this is where it's the most important thing in my eyes, after such an amazing experience.
Yeah, the integration is huge because, again, if I take this beautiful experience and then I go back to all the things and all the environment that I did, you're going to forget. You're going to eventually do that. And so that's that daily meditation, that daily check-in, the journaling, the gratitude. Those are those things that keep me in the medicine. And that's why I became an integration coach, a psychedelic integration prep and integration coach. And I went to a school for it. And it really just helped me understand, but probably doing my own work, that's where it happens. The medicine did not give me answers. It showed me what had already happened to me. It showed me how to move through them. So when I get back home, then now I have the tool. If I can forgive my perpetrator who molested me, I can forgive someone, a friend that's maybe being mean to me or a family member or something like that. But if I don't remember those lessons, then of course I'm going to forget. So integration is one of those of how do you take this experience and almost like make it last as long as it can? Because I do think it's good to go back sometimes and have checkups. Ibogaine's not really one. My partner, he's done it twice, but he had a lot of brain stuff and it heals TBIs and there's a lot of different things. Where with mine, I'm good. I'm good as long as I keep doing the work. I don't. And so a lot of times we talked about people that keep wanting to do this plant medicine, and you'll hear about people that are every weekend sitting in ayahuasca every couple months. And they're like, nothing's changing, this or that. That's what it is. What are you learning? And then also, are you integrating those lessons? Because it's so easy to run back to the medicine and get that quick fix. But what I found is sometimes with medicine, especially cannabis, I help people really understand cannabis. You're supposed to use this plant medicine to check in with yourself, not check out. And so a lot of times we have this anxiety thing of checking out and using at parties or psilocybin mushrooms and, just doing this cool thing. That's not what I think it's for. I think it's literally given to us to help us feel spirit more and quiet the noise, get out of the head and into the heart. And so that's the other thing I would ask people is, are you, when you go back home, are you living from your heart? Are you going back to your head? Because if you're going back to your head, the medicine is going to be like, okay, that's what you're going to get. And so it's that slow. And that's why I think people should work with coaches. Doesn't have to be me, anyone, a friend, but it's someone that's going to kind of help you navigate getting back after these big journeys. And it's like, if you put in all that work, might as well put in a little bit more work and work with someone on how to integrate, because people are getting revealed all these big things in medicine. And if you haven't done the spiritual work, that's where sometimes you hear that word spiritual psychosis or people don't know how. I try to say the best way is, and I'm sure you too, when you tap into spirit or channel all this stuff, to me, it's anchoring it in. That's what heaven on earth to me means, is anchoring all this beautiful love and light, but into my earthly experience. Because as much as I want to, I can't stay in spirit all day. And so that's been one of mine, is grounding back into this. But if you're not careful, it's easy to want to do that. So I've seen people who want to keep doing plant medicine or doing the DMT or the cannabis, and they just want to keep going back to that. Yeah, I understand it, but I truly believe the true masters, Buddha, Jesus, all these people, the masters, the enlightened ones, they learned how to bring that heaven, that peaceful feeling you feel onto earth. So no matter what's happening around you, you're ultimately your creator of your universe. And that's where I ultimately think is the gift in the plant medicine, to teach us we're the creators.
Thank you very much. I love how you said it. I also see it as an attunement, as the fork. And then you need to attune yourself to that, vibrate at the same frequency as much as possible, and just decide from your heart, live from within. And yes, having a coach who already integrated all of that is obviously amazing, right? So thanks for the work that you're doing here. Shannon, would you like to channel a message for the collective from the angelic realms, or whoever wants to come through, maybe Buddha or some ascended master? I don't know. Would you like to tune in and ask?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because it's funny, I've been getting a lot of Jesus stuff lately. And I really didn't get into, I would say, understanding Jesus or even understanding his story till recently. And so it just feels like very strong to me when he comes to me. It feels brotherly, but it's that thing of, we're missing his story. We're missing this story. And so a lot of stuff is how I align with his story, how you align, how everyone. And I look at it as this beautiful person that was born, and these angels and all this story. That's what we are. We're the miracle. And then I think of, we have some lost years. We don't know where he went, and in his 20s, I have an idea. I feel like he went to go study all of these things and then came back. And so part of it is that being curious. How did Jesus get to that enlightenment? How did he get to that path? And so I'm trying to discover that so I can follow that path too. And I think it's open to everybody. And so it's that separation of thinking we're different. And I don't believe that, because the human form of Jesus was no different than me. And so when I always feel like he's like, I'm the son of God, I'm like, I'm the daughter of God. I'm no different. I am no different in God's eyes, just like when I looked at my perpetrator, I was no different. And so I love to challenge people of, what does Jesus's energy feel like? And it's unconditional, but he teaches me how to surrender. And I feel like that's all he did, was surrender to his path back. It was like, this is what I am. I'm love. I know why I'm here. And so at the end, when he's on the cross, that's what I think is, he was just surrendering to, I trust God so much that I'm going to move through this. And that's what I feel too, is I know what's on the other side. I know what the other side, it's just energy and frequency, and we just change forms. That's it. That's all we do. It's like that accordion. We just go out so much and stretch out so much. And so it just feels like lately it's like we've gotten the message wrong. We've taken it so much, little too literal. And it's like bringing it back up and realizing we're no different. And I think once we realize that, we can be closer, because we've been taught that we're separate. We're no good. We're not as good. We're not possible to do that. I say, why not? why would God not choose me too? Because that's what I say. I'm just as worthy. I can be my hero, my rescuer. And that's what I really want people to know is ask that question. Why not? Why aren't you as worthy to be a Jesus, a Buddha, a master? And so that's what my goals right now is I am on the path of enlightenment, meaning I am learning to lighten up. I am learning to lighten my load, to remember all this stuff. It really does not matter. It doesn't matter. And so I just think if anyone can remember that, just remember you're worthy. You're worthy of that unconditional love that we're seeking.
Thank you, Shannon. That's beautiful. I love it, and I love Yeshua. Also, he also had these episodes on the Bible where it says that he turned the tables around and he was speaking his truth and asking questions. And that is like this divine anger, this showing you which path is heart-centered and which one isn't, which is a full circle to what you were talking about before as well.
Yeah, I love that. And he has been teaching me about anger, passion. And that's what I learned is like it's love. And then when love has nowhere to go, it kind of turns into passion. And that's with our life and attachment. And if it has nowhere to go, it turns into rage, that kind of thing. And so it's bringing it back. Then you have to go back and turn that into passion and purpose and then bring it back to love. And what better story is Jesus of that love of when someone's persecuting him, he's forgiving.
Exactly. Thank you very much. That's powerful. So, Shannon, let's go back a little bit to these mechanisms that we human beings tend to start utilizing, like, for example, the medicine, the marijuana, whatever it is for each one of us. For me, it's like differentiating between, is this something that I'm using to escape however I'm feeling? Or is it something that I'm using to go deeper into it and to transmute it to make something other out of it? How do you see that? How do you guide your clients towards this?
Yeah, I think again, that's so important to have that self-check every night. Like you just said, what are you using for? Are you using it to check out or to check in? So I've worked with a lot of clients, especially vets, that use the marijuana, cannabis all day, and they're using it as a coping tool. And so again, it's taking that shame away because their systems are unregulated. That's the other thing is you're so unregulated from trauma. And so it calms them down. So it's like we're not trying to take that away. We just want to go a little deeper in it. And so I always encourage everyone to start talking to the medicine because I believe it has its own energy and each plant medicine has its own thing. And so with cannabis, I love it. I think it's like one of my spirit guides where it has so many beautiful properties. But again, we're not taught how to work with them. And so I really try to help them. If you want to do that, that's amazing. But at the same time, maybe start within taking 5-10 minutes right before you do that. If you're going to smoke or whatever, maybe put some music on and meditate for 5 minutes and then do it. So you're bringing some intention with them. Then maybe next time you'll want to do 10 minutes, 15. And before you know it, you're not craving that. You're craving the feeling you get before it. And so that's what I've learned is it's that release. That's what in the medicine, when you just get that, oh, and then you just that's where it's at. And so it's like people finding that release. So use that, but just take that little bit extra and start talking to it. But I would recommend this is just never ingesting anything without intention. What is your intention? It's just like eating. If we stopped if someone had a food problem, what is your intention for eating this? Is it to nourish my body? Or is it to numb a feeling I have? And so those are those things, again, when it comes to understanding your body, the mind body soul connection is so important because your mind can think one and your heart can tell, but we're trying to bridge that. Again, heaven and earth, we're trying to bridge those two. And so it's stopping to be curious, not shameful, not judgmental of why you're doing these things, just being curious. And it's like my addiction was beautiful. It literally numbed stuff, my trauma enough to where I could function. So no, it didn't serve me in the long run. I got rid of it once it did, but I've never had a relapse. I've never had a thinking of it, a craving of it in 7-8 years. It no longer served me. And alcohol, when I came back from Ibogaine, I started drinking again. It was fine, whatever. And then it was like, oh, it's not helping me get in touch with spirit. It actually brings me down. And I'm like, I want to go up. I want my frequency to go up. So I just stopped drinking. It's been over a year. I have no idea the date. I used to do AA and chips and do and count. No idea because it doesn't serve me anymore. And so those are those things. If you're going to use medicine, use them when you need them. But when you don't need them, don't use them. Don't just let it fall. And so that's probably the best way for people to just start with talking to it and being like, what are you wanting out of taking something? What are you looking for? Are you looking for the high? Are you just looking for the release? And that's what I learned is I just wanted to feel normal. That's all I.
Thank you very much. That was really amazing again. Shannon, is there any parting message that you want to share with the audience right now?
Yeah, that despite everything that's going on in the world, and there's a lot of bad in the world going on, and it's like what I tell my daughter, you look for the bad, you're gonna find the bad. But there's a lot of good going on, and we're wanting to help and grow. And so it's that inspiration of literally inspiration in spirit. It's like the more we're in spirit with each other and the more we see we're one, then we have an opportunity for big change. And so it would just be to challenge the audience, anyone who's listening, how can I be better today? And how can I find the better in somebody else that I see today? And if we start doing that, I'm really excited about where the planet's going.
And that leads us to, do you have a vision of the new earth that we're co-creating right now?
I do. You know what it is? It starts with believing it. It starts with believing it's possible. And that's with it of knowing ultimately my universe. I'm the creator of my universe. Shannon is her own separate universe over here amongst others. And so I'm creating in mine peace and love, exactly what I'm wanting in that new earth. I'm creating in my life. And so that's ultimately what's going to happen is my life is going to reflect that. So I'm excited and I know the sky's the limit and I'm just beginning this journey.
Shannon, thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.